What's up, Average Joes? How's it going? So, bear with me on my video quality, sound, appearance, everything. This is the final week that I have to record here. Next week, I should be back into my regular office studio recording area. So, quality will go back to what it was and possibly even better. I have some new things that I've ordered. But anyway, so quick update on that one. Should be the last two videos coming out. Things have been pretty crazy. I've been, working two jobs, and now I'm working this final weekend. I'm working through the weekend, so that's made it a little bit harder too for recording purposes. But here I am recording. I haven't done a whole ton of prep on these, but I still have a decent idea that I wanted to get out and kind of chat about and start some dialogue about what everybody else thinks in terms of series to binge. So I guess I should say what this video is about. I'm going to outline what series you should binge or bingeable series. So there's all kinds of series out there, whether it's a trilogy, whether it's long series, however you want to think of series, but bingeable series, the ones that you should start and end pretty close together, not break up too much. Ones that you're just going to want to stick with, that you really want to hone in on and complete pretty quick, whether it's because it's so good, because of cliffhangers, or because you just need to remember things, whatever it is, or digestibility, anything like that length. This is just my 2 cents and thoughts of what series that I've read that I think are either binge worthy or things that would be good for people to binge if you are going to read them. And when I say binge, it doesn't mean like back to back to back. I mean like, within a reasonable amount of time, within whether it's a couple books in a row or have one book in between, do one on, one off kind of thing, whatever it is, however you consider binge, but you don't really need to take breaks. Okay, that out of the way, number one should be pretty easy, obvious, especially if you've read it. Faithful and the Fallen, 100%, you should binge it. Now, after book one, I know it can be a little bit rough. It's a bit slow going. You got to get into it. But once you get into it, it really ramps up the final half of it, or at least the final third of it. After that, it kind of doesn't slow down. Book two, it kind of picks up. It kind of slows and has ebbs and flows, ups and downs. But either way, most of the book, it starts to get more action. And then the third and fourth book is just shoot to the moon in awesomeness and action and everything. And especially after Ruin, book three, you're gonna want to go right into Wrath. Now, I say that, hypocrite, or funny enough, after Ruin, I took about an 8-month break to Wrath, which I know some people are probably thinking that's crazy. I don't know how you could do that. I kind of knew the cliffhangers that ended at the end of Ruin, what would happen, so there wasn't anything like that. But also, I didn't want the series to end. I didn't want to be done with the world, so I just wanted to savor it as long as possible and hold off until I really wanted to knock it out and be done with it. And then, by then the entire of Blood and Bone series was out, so I was like, all right, cool, I can finish Wrath, and then 2 months later, I'll go to Blood and Bone. It's Faithful and the Fallen, 100% bingeable series. Next, Red Rising. When I say Red Rising, I mean the first trilogy, because technically you can't binge all of it because book 6 in the world isn't out yet, but the first two books are. But I've only read the first three, so the first three in the Red Rising trilogy, I think, are bingeable. Now they kind of end to pick up with the next one leads off, especially book 2 into book 3. So Golden Sun going into Morningstar. And I did this read along with Library of Alexandria, so we did one book per month, which was close enough to binging, because it's still, I read the trilogy one book per month, so it was still pretty close. And I think I scrunched the second two together as like the end of 1 month and the beginning of the next month, something like that. So I think those are very bingeable series. Once you get into Darrow's head, I think it's great to just stick with it and go straight through. And like I said, the cliffhanger at the end of book 2 is pretty fantastic, and you need to just kind of find out what that happens. Next one, First Law. This one is mostly because book 1 is largely set up. So if you read book 1, all the character development and setup, and like nothing really happens except setup, which is kind of a knock to it. But once that all happens, if you take a long break, then you go into book 2 and going, okay, I know not much happened in this first book, so what's going on with these people? So I think binging through that makes sense to a certain extent. Also, because most people absolutely love it, I felt decent about it. It was 4 out of 5 for me. My brother-in-law just read it. He was not a fan. Other people have been, lately I feel like more people have been speaking out about that, First Law trilogy isn't as flawless and as amazing as most people have made it out to be. It's still really good. Obviously, it still has great popularity. That's why I think it should be a bingeable series. And I think you will be able to tell the character arcs much more if you binge it, because some things that happen early in book one, they kind of come back at the end of book three. So just to pick up on those little nuances would be good to slightly binge that series. This is another one that I read all three of them within the first 3 months this year. So I did one per month, I believe, as well. Next one would be Mistborn. This would be the first trilogy, the Arrow 1 trilogy, I guess you would say. And while you don't need to, I did when I first read Mistborn. I read it. I bought it as an omnibus, one big book on Kindle. So it was just like ginormous one book, and I just read it straight through. So much. Each book has its own individual story. Especially the first book, it's kind of its own standalone. But there's so much that happens, so much that changes with the world, with the magic system, with the people, that I think it is best to stick with it so that you can remember all of these little things, who is who and where, and like it's not that it's super complicated. There's just a lot that grows and builds on each other, and it's best to keep a lot of that stuff fresh as you go on. Next one will be the Greatcoats. Greatcoats, fantastic series, and some might not want to binge it, especially after like Saint's Blood, the third book, because it's hit or miss, and there's usually always one favorite book for all of them. But since they each have their own story and own arc, and it has its own focus, you can easily go. You in this instance, the series binge would not meet with series fatigue. So I think sometimes if you have the same narrative and people and goal, and it's like they're going through the same goal the entire time, you can get kind of fatigued about it because you've been reading about it forever. But since each book's kind of like its own separate chapter, its own episode that leads to the greater picture, I think it is much more easily digestible, and there's new things to focus on, new villains to focus on, new obstacles in each book, versus just like, okay, in 3 books we're gonna meet the end, and then until then we're just gonna kind of build the story. Ash and Sand trilogy. This one is primarily because time jumps and other little nuances. So I said this kind of in my review of it, and it's such a smart plot and how the story and everything connects, that you in things and people from book one that are in book one, this is not really going to be a spoiler because it's going to be super vague. People that are in book one who die are revealed to who they are in book 3 and why they were important and why they were killed, because the time is kind of different, and there's a little bit of different not timelines, I don't know what to say it, but there's time skips throughout the series, and all of the connections, it is so awesome to see how they all connect. So if you do it in close order, in close succession, then it'll be a lot easier to pick up on those, to remember those, to appreciate those, versus because some of them, they just kind of happen in passing of like, oh yeah, well, this person is that, and whatever. So if you don't have that fresh in your mind, then you might not actually appreciate the connection, but the connections are there. So it's a very smart, interesting plot that if you do it in a shorter succession, you will remember and pick up on all of those little nuances that Richard Nell kind of hid and planned out from the start. Next one would be The Queen's Thief. Also, funny enough, I've read the first 3. I haven't read the last 3 because the third one came out like last year. I'm still waiting to get the 6th one on paperback just so my match. Not that I always care about those things, but if I had the first 5, then might as well. This one's bingeable because it just goes down really quick and easy. They're pretty short. I think they're kind of on the YA section, but they're not YAE tropey on that edge. And the characters are nice. They're very smart plots. Each story has its own plot. I think I've described this in the past as watching a chess match, because like toward the end you can see what all the moves, there's like a bunch of hidden moves and things that will all come together, like if you're watching Ocean's 11 movie, it all comes together. So that's something that happened in the beginning, you'll remember, oh, okay, that all makes sense. But they're fairly casual, and although the smart casual, I guess you could say, smart casual Friday, that kind of read. So each of them go quick. They're very quick reads, and you don't really get fatigued or bogged down by anything. You can just go straight through, and it's fairly fast paced because of how smart it is. and because you're trying to figure out how things are going to work out, that it's just easy to blow through and you don't really get fatigued from it. I know when I first read those three, I read all three basically back to back to back. And the only reason why I took a break is because I knew the sixth book didn't come out for a while at the time that I read the first three. And then when I get the sixth book, I'll probably read them all, the last three, pretty close together as well. And last one that I'm going to bring up is Truly Devious. I've brought this up before. It's also a YA-ish trilogy, and it is a murder mystery setting, story. Setting is in a school. It has there is a murder that happened back in the early 1900s at this school, and then present day, the same sort of things are happening again. And they're in the first and second book. I think there are time jumps in between. You see, like, you read like letters from the past or chapters from the past and then the present, how they connect. So keeping all of those links connected and seeing if you can figure out the mystery and the connections and how everything works is really like it really sucks you in. I know we read the first book, really liked it. As the third book was coming out, we read the second book, and I went in one weekend, read the second and the third book in like a course of like 4 days, read both books, maybe even less, because it just sucks you in and you get into the mystery and you just want to figure it out and how everything escalates and connects and more secrets are revealed. It's just something that you really want to get into and not really put down. So that's why it's such a bingeable series. I just realized as I talked about that book that I didn't explain any of these books, but I think they are all pretty known for the most part. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I know I didn't do a very good job explaining some of these books and stories, but basically what you want to gather from this is that I think if you're going to read them, then you can binge them. These are bingeable series. You're not going to get serious fatigue, or it is going to enhance your reading experience of them if you read them in kind of short succession, not necessarily back to back to back, but in somewhat of a tighter time frame, planned out time frame. So what are some series that you think are bingeable that you think should be read, either should or could be read in a tighter window, that you won't get serious fatigue or just will enhance the experience, make it better to read in a short time frame? Let me know what your bingeable series are and what you think about the ones that I put on here, and we'll talk more in the comments.